I do not know how to cook a steak. And I'm sure she wanted to smack me.
Hello, fellow carnivores. My name's Chad. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking with Carrie from My Metamorphosis. She's been low carb since 2015, carnivore since December 2022. She came in for metabolic health, and one of the biggest things was to cure anxiety, which she's been able to do on a carnivore diet. Hello, Carrie. How are
Hey,
you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Y'all ready for this?
Sure, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So, yeah, just take me back to why did you have to find carnivore and how did you find it?
Well, it starts in 2015. My mother had type 2 diabetes, and the quality of her life toward the end of her life was not good at all. And I knew that I did not want to become diabetic. And so I started researching what to eat, how to eat in order to not have to take medications and not develop diabetes. Now, I did not have diabetes. And as a matter of fact, I mean, my blood work was good already. But I just knew, I mean, my mother was really healthy and slim and everything before she became diabetic. And I saw the changes in her. And so I knew that I didn't want that. Initially, of course, when you start looking for what to eat, you find a lot of vegetarian or very little, like it might be the lean meats and lots of vegetables kind of thing. And that didn't last very long. I have never been afraid of fat or meat. Um, I just, but I couldn't do the salads. They would tear up my stomach. And so when I had vegetables, it would be like steamed. But that diet just wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't very sustainable or just very good. I didn't enjoy what I was eating really, and it wasn't satisfying. So, but anyway, as I did more research, though, I found low carb. So I went low carb, and I really don't know how many carbs I was eating. I really didn't track it to any detail, but I do know I gave up the grains. I gave up pasta, the seed oils, all of that stuff, and I went low carb. And then I just gradually went down to keto. Maybe about 4 years ago, I guess I went 3 or 4 years ago. I went down to keto, and then it just gradually got to the point to where I was eating very few vegetables. I was actually, I guess, what you would call ketovore, like if you listen to Dr. Barry and Nisha. And then I have a neighbor who works for a food supply company. So I sort of stumbled into carnivore. He brought me these boxes of burger patties and bacon, and he brought a big tub of bologna and just all kind, a lot of food. And I ended up having to give some to my daughter because I didn't have enough room in my freezer for it. I don't have a box freezer, but so I didn't want the food that I had to go bad. So I just ate off of it. And I was just eating only meat. Like there was pulled pork in there. I mean, he had given me, my fridge was like, and freezer were just stuffed with this food. So I was just eating on it. And it was maybe about a month after I started eating all of that, that I was just scrolling through YouTube and I started seeing videos about carnivore. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so I started watching and I was like, wow, you know what? I guess I'm carnivore now. And it just, so that's sort of how I fell into it. But the weird thing is, I'm not sure exactly how long it was after I started eating this way, but I realized that the anxiety that I had suffered with to varying degrees my whole life since I was 20 is gone. When I was 20, out of nowhere, I don't know where it came from. I don't know why, but suddenly I just started having like just really bad anxiety, and it would get just to the point where I was having, I guess, what you would call an anxiety attack. And it was like where you felt like you were short of breath. I would say that it feels like you're the universe is kind of off kilter and that something isn't right and that you don't have control. And if you let yourself, it feeds on itself because then it starts to scare you, which then makes you anxious, which then makes it worse. And I don't know, like I said, I have no clue as to what caused it. My job was a job. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. I mean, my marriage was okay, not perfect, but I don't know. There was nothing that I could think of that would just suddenly propel me into these anxiety attacks. And it was awful. It was just really tough. And then they gradually subsided. But the thing is, like periodically they would come back. Just it seemed like out of nowhere, I would just start having them again. So I've had this throughout my whole life. I never was on medication for it. I never really said anything. I suffered in silence and just sucked it up and bared it, just, pull up your bootstraps and that's it. So I had noticed maybe it was about a month or so, or maybe close to the time that I had found out that I was actually doing carnivore. I mean, I knew I was eating only meat, but I didn't have a name for it. And I was like, wow, I'm not anxious. I'm actually calm. And especially like now, I'm just so thankful because I've had some really challenging things happen in about the last month that any one of those things would have it would have made me stressed, which that's a different thing than the anxiety attacks. But I just noticed that like my mood is more even keel. I'm able to focus more. I have more energy. But I don't have anxiety attacks. I haven't had one. Um, I guess it was like about a year, well, a little less than a year ago, I guess, that I had my last one. And I haven't had any since. And that in itself is just fantastic. But then the regular like stress induced anxiety, if that makes sense, like it's a different animal than just
Yeah.
like the attacks. I still can't figure out. I mean, I've looked back and tried to think of like what caused it. And especially when I would still have them periodically, because, if you have something like that, you want to know what triggers it so that you can avoid it. And I just never really did figure out what it was. And looking back, it could have been diet. It could have been something that I was eating maybe that triggered it. I don't know. And what's really odd is I was basically what you would call ketovore before I started carnivore. I don't know if something that I was eating at the time would trigger it or why I feel so much better on carnivore because I wasn't eating that much veg. But I will tell you this, carnivore has made me feel better than I have ever felt in my life. Hands down. I have energy. I get up very early in the morning. I go meditate. I meditate. Then I go for my morning walk. Then after that, I might work on a project. I might work on I don't know, a t-shirt design, or I might work on a video for my YouTube channel. But even before then, before I had my YouTube channel, I would just find other things to work on or do. Like I like to write. Like to write short stories, and so I might write for a while, just whatever. But it just got to the point, like on carnivore, I got a lot of work done before I even logged in to start work for my day job. So it just, carnivore has just given me, it's a gift. And I just want to tell everybody now, I'm a strange bird in many ways, I suppose, but in terms of carnivore, I'm strange because I I grew up in the 80s when um, being a video vamp and all of that was the thing. That was the look, that women wanted, and I was tall and skinny as a rail, And so I never had a problem with my weight. So when I did carnivore, or when I started low carb, it was because of the diabetes. It had nothing to do with weight or anything like that. And so, fast forward to going on carnivore, well, I noticed that my clothes started getting looser, and I really didn't have much weight that I could spare to lose, because when I went low carb, I lost a few pounds and then it just sort of stopped, and that was that. Well, I got down, and I'm 5'9", and I weigh 119.4 pounds. So, and that was at, I see a specialist. So I don't see my primary care doctor but like once a year when I get my physical. So, but this was about 3 months ago when I saw a specialist. I see because of my neck, which incidentally, that pain is uh, way, way better. I don't have to take medication for that. Once in a blue moon, I might have to take something if I sleep wrong. So that's yet another benefit of carnivore. But I went around the block across the street to say that, well, now I lost my train of thought.
With the weight, basically where you came from with your weight,
Yeah. Yeah. My
you didn't
weight.
have an overweight problem. You were underweight and losing more is what you were saying on keto.
Yeah, so I'm down to 119.4, and I may even be less than that now because that was like 3 months ago. So that was the whole point of telling about the.
You like the 0.4.
I like the point four. Oh, I can't round up to 120. Oh, so, yeah, that's too funny. So, so it's been, people talk about like vegetarians and how their diet isn't healthy and how they get too thin, and I've always been self-conscious about being too thin anyway, especially when I was a teenager, and as an adult I had put on a little weight, and so I didn't feel as self-conscious. But some of that has kind of come back because of the fact that I've lost so much weight, and I've had a couple people tell me that I'm too thin, which I'm like, no shirt lock. Yeah, I can see. I have a mirror, I know. But I feel so good on carnivore. So it's like, I don't want to stop. And I've thought about adding in veg, and I just don't want to do it. So I'm not. So I'm working on different tweaks, things to try that I can do to possibly maybe increase my appetite some. I don't think I eat like a bird, but I don't pig out either. I've never been a huge eater, but I've never like picked at my food. So, like one thing that I've done is I've given up coffee with, I would put butter and sometimes MCT oil in it. I mean, that's kind of a low carb keto thing to do. And I've just done that forever. And so I stopped doing that. I've also stopped drinking seltzer water because I think one thing that it did, I drank a lot of seltzer water, and I would keep it like beside me, and I think with that hint of flavor, and then I would put a little bit of element in it too. And I think, I don't know, there's something addictive about it. Suppose, who knows what the other natural flavors are, right? I mean, but I was drinking a ton of seltzer water, and I thought, maybe if I just drink plain water, plain filtered water, maybe that will, because I think I was using water as sort of a substitute for getting up and actually going and getting something to eat. And then, of course, another thing that I've done too is I keep a little tub here at my desk, and I will have like a couple of hot dogs in there. I keep a little can of Vienna sausages, and I might even bring up like a burger patty or something. But just I'll have like little things that are carnivore that if I can't get away to actually eat my lunch right then, if I do feel hungry or if I start to reach for my water, I'll say, okay, am I thirsty or do I really just need to stop and eat? Because, and I have noticed that I eat more. by doing that. Not a ton more, but I have noticed that I will, many times I'll go ahead and just get one of my little things, whether it's the um, Vienna sausages or a hot dog or whatever it is, rolled up piece of bologna, whatever that happens to be, and I'll eat that instead of drinking the water. So I'm just trying the different things to just see if possibly I can come up with a combination that will maybe let me gain a little more weight. And another thing I've started doing is body weight exercises. I have been taking my walks for a long time, but well, and another thing about the walks is at times they would seem like a chore. Like I would wake up in the morning and I'd think, oh, yeah, I guess I need to go for my walk. But ever since I've been carnivore, it's just like I meditate and then I'm ready to go for my walk. It doesn't seem like a chore at all. And I just come into this Zen feeling almost. It's really unbelievable. But like I notice the beauty around me. And I don't know if that change is due to carnivore or maybe the fact that I was anticipating the walk. And then since it's not a chore, then I'm just more apt to notice the beauty. I'm really not sure, but it's a whole different experience now when I take my walk. And I'm not meandering. It's not like I'm just strolling along. I mean, I do on average a couple of miles a day. Sometimes it might be a mile and a half. Sometimes it might be 2.5 miles. It just depends on the route that I take. But in general, it's I will just say it averages a couple miles every morning. And I'm walking at a pretty brisk pace, but yet at the same, I don't wear headphones. And I just notice the colors in the morning sky and just hear the birds. And I'm walking before everybody else is up and about, although that's changed a little bit because, um, the sun is coming up later and I don't want to go walk in total darkness. So I have had to start my walk as the time is progressing. I've had to start it a little bit later in the morning. And so now you see kids waiting at the bus stop, or you see, there's more cars as people are leaving to go to work. But I have noticed another thing that um, when I started seeing the kids stand, some of them are like, preteens, but a lot of the ones that I see are teenagers, and they can have their nose stuck in their phones or whatever. But when I walk by and they look up, I say, good morning, and at first they just ignored me and they would just like grunt or something. But I've gotten them to speak back. So, and that made me feel good, that I don't know. Just a nice thing, to have. I don't know. It was just a good feeling for them to, for me to speak to them and to smile, and then to actually have them respond, and some of them even smile back. It's a cool thing. So, um, well, I rambled on about that, but anyway, so carnivore has just made me feel great though, and I want my main mission and the reason I started my channel and the reason I just tell everybody is because the world needs to know they can feel this good. They don't have to feel run down, terrible. And it's not all about weight. I now understand that the majority of people who watch these videos and participate in carnivore, they're drawn to it for the weight loss. And of course, that's a wonderful thing that, I mean, there are people like Sean with intentional carnivore, and look at the transformation he's had. But he also talks about the mental health, and that is so true. And the state of the world now, I truly believe it's the garbage diet is why people are so depressed and so snippy with each other, so short with each other. They just snap and get violent, and I don't know. I truly believe that the diet has
Chemical imbalance.
yes, yes,
Yep.
or what they call type 3 diabetes too, like
Yeah.
especially with like Alzheimer's and stuff. You didn't used to hear about people in their 50s being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and now you do. You hear of that, and it's just terrible. Um, I know that Nisha, Dr. Barry's wife, had during a talk that I watched, she had talked about when she was in a nursing home having people like, or she worked at a nursing home and had people as patients who were like in their early 60s. And it's just, this is terrible. This is
Sad.
not how humans are supposed to live. It's not. So I just want to spread the word that the weight loss and everything is great. But man, the mental clarity and the just the focus and the energy that you have and your frame of mind, I just feel more outgoing and cheerful and happy. And I want to share that with the world.
Yeah, I think too, like I say, I came in for the weight loss and I stay for the fountain of youth
Oh, yeah.
because that is what it might bring you in, but once you're in, a lot of people end up staying. Now they might change a little bit what they ate,
Hmm.
or are eating from the beginning to the end on that. Now, like, what do you eat in a day, and what do you like to do, or like, oh, mad, too mad, 20 mad?
I
You know
generally
what I
do
mean?
two meals a day. I generally do not eat until about 11, and it's not that I am 11 in the morning. And it's not that I'm intentionally doing that, it's just I'm not hungry. I've never really been a big breakfast eater anyway. So I, yeah, around 11, and generally I'll eat like some eggs, bacon. Sometimes I might throw a burger patty in at that time. And then dinner, or well, the second meal of the day, is generally like around 4:30 or so in the evening, maybe 5. But my work day starts at 7, so I mean, that's kind of the cycle there. But I I'll have like maybe 2 or 3 burger patties, sometimes even 4. I do lots of meal prep too because my work is intense, and a lot of times by the end of the day, I know I'm not going to feel like cooking anything, and I'm just not into cooking anyway. So I do a lot of meal prep. So I have like tons, like I'll have like 36 burger patties cooked up. Like I'll just cook a bunch of them up on Sunday, and I'll have them for the week. And I'll cook up a bunch of bacon too, and I'll hard boil eggs. And then as snacks, I'll have, like I said, Vienna sausages, um, hot dogs, bologna, just roll up bologna and eat that. Let's say, oh, I eat sardines. And it's funny. I thought I would hate sardines. And I did a video, one of my first videos when I started my channel. I thought, well, it would be interesting. I mean, I would probably laugh if I saw it. I was like, I'm going to film myself trying sardines for the first time. So I did. And it was, I thought my
Oh,
cat was, now he didn't get on camera or anything. You actually couldn't hear him, but man, he was nagging me. He smelled those things and he wanted some. And I did end up giving him a couple of bites, but I actually liked sardines better than I thought I would. And then, funnily enough, after I'd eaten them a couple of times, I'm like, these are really good. And I put hot sauce, Frank's Original hot sauce on them. And so I eat a can of those a day as well. And then once a week, I eat cod livers. And sadly, I cannot say that I like them as much as I do sardines. I do put hot sauce on them, and I eat them as quickly as possible, but they're kind of like my little hedge fund or whatever. It's just like, you know, it's not like I'm eating a ton of liver, but at least it's giving me some extra nutrients. And so I just make it a point to go ahead and eat those. But my meals are not exciting. Of course, I'll eat steak if somebody fixes it. I admit I do not know how to cook a steak. That's terrible, but I don't. So that is one of my goals, is to go ahead and just get me a steak. I'm probably going to go to the store tomorrow and get one, and see if I can watch a video or something and just, I've got a cast iron skillet and supposedly it's easy. And so I'll just see if I can cook it, and if push comes to shove, I'll throw it in the woods and the critters will eat it. But anyway, I'll eat shrimp and stuff like that on occasion. Once in a while, I'll get some peel and eat shrimp, something like that. But my mainstay is almost like beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, really.
So have you ever tried like throwing in way more protein and seeing what happens? Like start eating into the
I
higher protein levels to gain weight
I don't really. I think I just need to. I really think I just need to eat more in
more?
general. I don't pay attention to like how much protein and
Yeah.
how much fat that I eat. It's like um, I do add butter liberally, like when I do cook eggs and stuff like that. For example, I'll cook them in the bacon grease and um, add butter and stuff like that. And I get the what is it, the 70/30 ground beef. So and sometimes I'll just mix butter in. Like if I make it, like sometimes I'll do like I think Carrie from Homestead How, he calls them power bowls. But basically, I mean, it'd be like eggs and ground beef mixed together. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll stick some, like a lot of butter, or if I have some bacon grease handy, I'll put some bacon grease in there. Um, so, so I think overall, I probably get a lot of, it's not like I'm saying, oh, I need to, lower my fat and increase my protein or anything like that. I don't even think about how much protein versus fat, other than I just know that I'm not afraid of fat. So
Yeah.
I eat, and I do know that I need to get the fattier ground beef because that's a big chunk of what I eat is ground beef and bacon. And I get the fattiest bacon I can find. I actually look at the package, say, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's fatty enough. Because
But
I
it's hard to
actually like
probably,
bacon fat. I love it.
yeah, but it's hard to push that extra food into you, do you find, kind of thing, when you're trying to gain weight? Because so many of us, are trying to lose that. So I
I
guess, is that
know.
hard to just go, okay, I'm going to pound down another couple bites, or is it just,
Oh, this is the thing. When I'm done. It's like, and I've always been this way too. It's like when I'm full, I can have two bites left on the plate. But if I'm
Mhm.
done, I'm done. I can't eat anymore. It'll just make me queasy if I do. So, but I have found though that since like I said, one of the things that I've tried to or that I've started doing in order to increase my appetite is I've given up coffee with the butter and the MCT oil in it, because I really believe that that was something that was just suppressing my appetite. And also drinking the seltzer water, I know our stomachs aren't stupid, so they know, hey, this isn't food. Like if you reach for a liquid, like the seltzer water, if you reach for a liquid, your stomach knows that that's not food, and so it doesn't necessarily curb your hunger. But what it does do is, like, if you're, it can kind of stay or keep you from eating
yeah.
though. Like right then, it'll like, I don't
If you
really
dig
know.
into ghrelin and leptin and responses,
Hmm.
varied with insulin, how the ghrelin, I'm digging more into that, and it's like, it's beyond our control. It's a thing that happens in our bodies and system that says there's a trigger mechanism, this stuff. It's, you can have all the willpower you want, but when your body's triggering it, it's hard to fight it. And when you're getting full from that inside, like, okay, this is satiated thing, that's
Hmm.
tough. I think this is that mental side of this that people face sometimes. They don't realize, oh, I just don't have the willpower to stop. Or, like in your case, those little trigger things that maybe filled you up, the coffee or the
Hmm.
sparkling water. When your body's saying it's full, even if you maybe could physically take some, it's just near impossible, because it just, you know what I mean? It's a weird, there's some
Hmm.
physiology stuff, I guess, if that's the right word, or chemical stuff that's going on.
I think I'm physiologically weird anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like my mother said that when I was little that I would eat every other day. So like I was like fasting before fasting was cool, I guess. And truthfully, I enjoy eating good food, but food has not ever been this thing that I was ever really consumed with. And I know, and believe me, like when it made me feel awkward, sort of, to be so weird and odd and being like part of carnivore or low carb groups because most people would feel like I couldn't identify or they couldn't identify with me. And so it was really hard to tell my story or to decide to tell my story. But I decided to do that because of just the, like I said, the mental health benefits and also though the metabolic benefits with the exception of the LDL. So I've just, yeah, I've always just had this weird metabolism, weird eating habits. It's just most people couldn't think about going a day without eating. But honestly, like sometimes I would get so involved in my art. Like when I was a teenager, I'd be holed up in my room listening to some Kiss or something, and I'd be drawing, designing album covers and logos and all this stuff because that's how I was going to make my big fortune. And but anyway, I'd be in there just involved in all that. And the next thing you know, I mean, hours had passed and I didn't eat anything and it didn't matter. Um, I've just always been strange that way.
So that's how it goes.
Yeah.
We've all got quirks. Everybody has quirks. It's just what they are. I know you mentioned the art and stuff. What kind of art do you like? Like getting into a fun personal side. Like,
Yeah. I like to do fantasy art. And I also used to like to design logos and things like that. Like I would make up rock bands and then I would design logos for them. So like I used to think if I could just find some gifted, talented musicians, and then I've got this whole image that I've made up for them. Like one was called Fenris Wolf, for example. That was the name of one of them. I was digging through some stuff the other day and I found the logo for that of the silhouette of a wolf with the moon. And then the logo was kind of like pointed uh, letters and stuff. So it was pretty neat. Uh, yeah, so I love to do things. So, and I like fantasy art. I would paint. Uh, I did a painting of Iron Maiden's Eddie that I hung in my office at work. And I remember my son was like, I can't believe they let you hang this in here. So actually, I've started messing around with art again. I mean, for a long time, I really didn't do that much with it, just concentrating mostly on work and other life events, or time just gets by, and the next thing you know, years have passed and you haven't really done much with something. So I've designed a couple of T-shirts that I wear. I've actually gotten prototypes of them, and I wear them out, and people will ask me about what the shirt is, and so one of them, it's like "Welcome to my metamorphosis," and then it's got lightning striking, and it's got this like a all in white. This I guess it could be a lion or a tiger. You can't really tell. You just know it's a cat with big teeth. And so people will ask me, it looks like a concert shirt, which I love my concert shirts. And so, yeah, art, that's another thing because I hadn't done art in so long and now I feel like doing it. Like even if I've had a hard day at work, it's not like I'm just ready to, okay, I'm going to log off and just couch for a while. I actually will draw or do something. I need to get some paints. I have not painted in a while, but um, yeah, but yeah, I love art and I'm getting back into it.
I think that's a huge side of it because I've been a photographer for over 20 years since before when I taught scuba, and then I kind of got into that. And when I was out of shape, I would do work because it's my work, as income. And I was creative, but I wasn't creative in that sense of like creating. You know what I mean? How there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference of like, if somebody came to you and said, draw this as an artist, you can go, okay, I understand that because I have direction, but you don't want to like free your mind and be creative to do your own things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the huge side of this too, is that mental side of it, man, it just opens up,
Oh, it
you know,
does. And your
it
creativity
really
just
opens up.
flows. It does for
Yeah.
me. It's like I just ideas just boom, 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 boom. I guess the synopses are just firing and I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. Maybe it's all that good fat covering the myelin sheaths in there, and they're just firing, and I don't know what it is, but man, I'm loving it. I feel like when I was a teenager and I would be designing things. Now, of course, what's really cool though is now you can design a lot of things using software, and so I've gotten some
Hmm.
design software and stuff, and so like the print to order shirts now, so you can just use the software and then you can order shirts. And so I've just got all these ideas and things that I'm working on, and I don't know if anything will ever come of the shirts, but I'll tell you one thing, I've had some great conversations, and I'm wearing a shirt today that I had done, and I had gone to the store, and I had a couple people ask me about it. So it's just funny how that works, and it gives me the opportunity to say, oh, meat and metal equals happy. Rock on, energy. I don't know. And then I explained that I eat only meat. And
And
I've
then they
had a
go,
couple people be like, what? But then,
yeah,
then here's what's happened too, though, is that people will say, oh, well, my brother's cousin eats only meat. So I've had that happen several times. And it's just like, so that's encouraging to me because it's kind of like keto was like maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Um, Keto was starting to, become mainstream, and to the point now where everybody knows what keto is. And although they may disagree on what appropriate things are to eat, but people know. But when you think carnivore, they you have to explain, even though you technically know through biology that a carnivore eats only meat, but when you as a human tell somebody else that you are carnivore, which I just say I only eat meat, it just makes it easier. Because if you say you're carnivore, then they're just either they have a preconceived notion of what that is, like eating raw meat, I don't know, blending up
yeah.
raw stuff and guzzling it down. I mean, they've seen all the weirdos on YouTube and TikTok, so so they may have a preconceived notion. I just say I just eat only meat.
And then you get that, but you eat some vegetables, right?
Yeah, I'll get that
Well,
most of the time. And then
you
I've
eat some
had,
bread still, don't you?
yeah,
Or
it's like,
you still
no,
eat some pasta, don't you? You know, I love that when they just can't get it through their head that no, it's just meat. And they keep throwing it in there like it's going to make you say yes.
like there's some little item that you're
Something.
not telling them about. Like you're holding back on them.
Yeah. It's like
I know.
that is always a good
But
one.
it's always good though to have the conversations, and
Yeah.
I enjoy talking with people. And I've always, this is a weird thing about me, but then what else, right? But I have always been kind of like a people person. It's just that, so it's not that I was ever anxious about people. It was just anxious, I guess, about, well, I don't know what. But like, for example, at work, I used to sit on the front of the cubicle, or the front, my cubicle was on the front of the row. And so everybody would walk by when they came in, and I would speak to everybody. And I remember there was this one woman, it's kind of like those teenagers, but there was this one woman, and she'd come in every morning. And she just looked like she was mad at the world. And I'd say, good morning. And I know, I'm sure she wanted to smack me. She probably did. But she got to where she would speak back. And then she got to where she'd like stop and like have a little conversation. And so I've always liked people in general. Not to say there's not some jerks in the world, but in general, I'd like to believe the best about people. So it's just when I start a conversation or have a conversation, like if I'm wearing one of my shirts at the grocery store or just wherever I happen to be, and somebody says something, um, I like the opportunity to talk with them. And then I like the opportunity to just tell them that I eat only meat. And it's like, no, I don't have vegetables. No, I don't eat salads. No, I don't eat cheese, or, or whatever, whatever thing they throw in there. Um, I mean, technically you can eat cheese, but you get my point. I mean, they just
Yeah.
like start slinging stuff in there until something sticks.
Yeah. And they don't stop until they're so when you do this, do you ever think, because I do this sometimes, like if I'm at the meat area picking it out and some guy's like, oh, if they open it, I offer it. If there's a
Mhm.
one opening, like talking about the meat price, I actually did this a couple of days ago and ended up talking to a guy for a while. And
Mhm.
I looked at it also like he needed to lose weight and he said something about it. And I don't know if it's just me, but now I look at this situation. Could I help them or is there something? And I have this different outlook. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Do you have that ever? That you're looking at people,
Yes.
you're
Oh,
going through Walmart and you might see them and you're like, oh, I wish I could just tell them it's just
yes.
this easy. Do you know what I'm saying? Is that mental side of getting into this?
Or like if I just like we were talking earlier, so many people now they just, and I understand that life can be hard and you don't know what somebody else is going through in terms of they could have an ill relative or just whatever, but so many people now they just in walking through the store they look like they could just punch you. They
Yeah.
they, they just have this look of just anger on their face. I don't know, and I just want to say, man, I can, if you would just eat meat, just eat, or just add a lot of fatty meat to whatever you're eating, maybe, or something. But I think one detrimental thing is that's happened throughout all of this dietary guidelines and everything is just the fact that people aren't getting the fatty meat. That's why these kids, they can't concentrate in school. They get low fat milk, low fat chocolate milk. I
Yeah.
mean, terrible, among other things. I mean, it's ridiculous what they give them in school now and call that their breakfast. And they think they're helping these kids. And I guess it could be better than nothing. But and then they wonder why they're ADHD or why they can't concentrate and their brains aren't getting those fats that they need. And I mean, they're still growing, they're still developing. But I see what's in people's grocery carts, and I see like kids acting out in the store, and it's not the kids' fault, and it may not even be the parents' fault because everybody's been misled. We've all been
Hmm.
told wrong, and they think people like us are weirdos, kooks, conspiracy theorists, you name it. So we do have to tread, like in other words, like there'll be some folks in our, like in the low carb keto carnivore community, that they mention stuff like big pharma and big this and whatever, and I'm like, I think, look, I don't disagree with that. I think that there are lots of motives, money motives, and people getting bought off and that kind of thing. I do believe that, but I think the language that we use maybe sometimes can be a little off-putting, and maybe we can phrase it a little differently and just say, well, not using words like big pharma and big
Yeah.
medicine, because it just, even though I don't think it's a conspiracy or a conspiracy theory, I mean, I think it's fact. But when you say those words, when you say things like big this or big that, it kind of makes people shut down. They don't pay attention to what you're saying because they think that you're just a kook.
Yeah.
So that was just a little aside because I kind of used some of that phrasing with somebody Actually, it was a good while back, and they were like, "Well, that just sounds crazy." And then and it kind of offended me a little bit, but then I got to thinking, and this is a person that I knew well. It's not like I was telling this to a stranger, but then I got to thinking, well, I mean, if you want to convince somebody that what you're doing is a good idea, you don't want to say something that might put them off. So instead, you just ease into it a little more. But so I'm not saying that I don't think that big whatever has ulterior motives, because I believe that they do. It's just maybe approaching it from a different way when you talk to people.
There was this show I watched, and I can't remember when it was or how long ago, and it was about McDonald's and the food science they use, and how they literally did different kinds of straws to find the maximum flow rate to get the best taste. I don't know if you've ever seen, but there's literally
Mm-hmm.
this, and they know all about responses, leptin, ghrelin, insulin, how to
Yep.
spike it, how to drop it if they need to do this. They know satiety, they know how it works with those responses. And like, I'm not the one who has said this. Every other big carnivore has said this. That's why there even used to be advertisements. Oh, you can't only have one. Those kind of things. They're actually just coming out and saying it. We're making
Mm-hmm.
this food hyper palatable, addictable,
Oh yeah.
addicting, I guess addictable, but you know what I mean? They're making these things that way. And it's a known thing. This is
Mm-hmm.
why you see these things. And it's like when I go into the store and I see the chip aisle, and it's the
Oh.
same length as the meat side and the vegetable side. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people, like all the carnivores, are pretty good with let people do what they want. Like I'm fairly strict on carnivore, but I say, hey, if you need these things to get through this and get this, dropping that junk. If you could drop the seed oils and
Yeah.
drop the junk, and like you say, up the fatty meat, you're going to be at a good balance. If you still want your veggies, go for it. Maybe research oxalates and find some low and be healthy. But there's some side of the food thing that makes me wonder where this push is coming from. Where this, I only thing I think most healthy people do, and this is on both sides of the aisle. The seed oils we know aren't healthy, and
Mm-hmm.
the excess of sugars aren't healthy, but the sugars in fruits are kind of okay, which is kind of a funny thing. But we know that the junk food, the processed junk food, both sides, the vegetable healthy side and us carnivore side, we're trying to get healthy. If we cut that out, we just don't agree of the fatty meat. But at the same time, we don't tend to get as hostile. I'm probably going to get bad feedback from this one. We don't get as hostile about it. And there's not
No.
this pushback with everybody saying meat's bad. And yet, all we have to do is look around at society today. And you and I are both really close in age. So when we were little, you didn't see as many obese people like at the parade or at a
Mm-mm.
4th of July event.
Or at
And
the
now it's all
beach.
over. And at the beach, and what happened? And obviously my parents' age, when I look at pictures of like old family stuff, it was like really rare from the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's this push to demonize the one healthy thing. And that's what I think is an interesting.
Oh, I have theories about it. I just don't say anything about them much because
Yeah.
people would think I'm crazy, probably. But I just I think that there is a segment of leadership that wants to keep the population sick and fighting amongst itself so that they can control you more.
You
That's
know the old surf. I think it's just modern day serfdom, and they've really made it,
mhm.
wrapped it in a pretty bow and package, and everybody's like, okay, I'll eat this stuff.
And
And
they're
this is
just
again why healthy people in general need to work together, not against each other.
yes.
This is why when people come on and say stuff, I'm like, hey, I'm glad you found what works for you. We
Mhm.
found what works for us. Let's try to get this health forward to people. And that's also why I'm not afraid to talk up in stores like you are too. I
Mhm.
don't go preaching it to people,
Oh, no,
but
but
if
if
I get an
somebody talks
opening,
to me
yeah, exactly. If I get an opening and they're, cordial to that. You can tell because, oh, meat prices are ridiculous. It's like, yeah, especially when you only eat meat and you don't eat anything else. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that opening line. Then they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, I only
That's a
eat.
great line. I haven't used
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
It's spreading that. I think it's why both you and I are on these things now on the social. We both were talking about that beforehand. It's like we got
Mm-hmm.
to spread the good word.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start an Instagram account. I don't think I'll ever go back to Facebook. I stopped that in the middle of last summer. I mean, I'm sorry, the summer of 2020, when all the political stuff and oops, the illness that shall not be named.
Beep.
Yeah. Uh, when all of that was happening, I just stopped Facebook altogether. And that was the only social media other than, I mean, guess YouTube could be considered social media. I didn't really look at it that way. I mean, my viewing on YouTube it was mainly up until carnivore videos, it was mainly documentaries, just about anything. It could be about space, it could be about prehistoric America, it could be anthropology, just anything. And I loved watching TED Talks and things like that. And I still do watch those. I just watch a lot more carnivore videos and or like keto, low carb kind of stuff. I watch more of that now.
I'll plug Low Carb Down Under. Do you ever watch that channel?
I do.
That's a good one. I
Oh
like that
yeah.
because I also like it because they've got a varied people with different thoughts and different ideas coming out. It's not always just from this really strict carnivore stance. It
Yeah.
comes in from the keto side and it comes in from other people from other avenues as professionals in their field coming in with actual good information about things they've seen change and
hmm
how to change it. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. And here's the thing, another thing that we need to really be careful about is, and I hate junk food and I hate the fact that it's out there and I hate the fact that people eat it and that it's, hey, as long as you bolus with your insulin or take your medicine, you can eat whatever you want. I hate all of that. But when we start talking about outlawing certain foods, you open the door. The food that you don't want may end up being like, for example, if we outlawed sugar or whatever, that would be fine until the power shifted.
Yep.
And of course, now we look and we see that they're wanting to outlaw meat. I mean, some cities are having like meatless Mondays in their school systems and things like that. And it's just like, we better be careful. Um, I just think that you can cut off your nose to spite your face by suggesting something like that. And I'm all for people eating what they want to eat. So it's like, okay, this is where I think that we, well, I'll just say this. For example, if the like say the AHA or the ADA or and the government and everybody said, okay, we got it wrong. These things are not good for you. Healthy whole grains are not good for you. This is not good for you. Sugar's not good for you. Whatever. And we're sorry. I mean, if they ever did do that, and people were informed of what the truth is, and then the people still chose to eat junk. Okay, I mean, let them eat what they want. Likewise, if you want to be a vegetarian or you want to be vegan, whatever it is, just don't tell me how to eat. Don't try to tell me what I need to do or what my kids need to eat if I have like small children or something. That's the thing. Just don't. Uh, but you run into, because see, for one thing, people don't realize. I mean, I think people know that outright junk is bad, but then they're being told that whole grain bread is healthy. They're
Well,
being
that's the thing.
told that
They
it's
put
okay
heart
to.
healthy on it. They put
Mhm.
heart healthy on that and the oils
Yeah,
and
and they're told that it's okay to give their kid a big glass of orange juice. That I mean, it has more sugar than you need in a month. I mean, than your body would require. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous what they say is healthy, but it's fruit juice. It's okay. It's fruit juice.
100% natural. That's and
Yes.
and
Has
and
the bulk,
being
fiber.
from Hawaii, I always say, and cane is a grass, but it's
Hmm.
sugar. You're just eating some grass. That's all you're doing when you have sugar. Is
That's
that
true.
healthy? No, it's that kind of like it's just a plant, but
Hmm.
it's the way it's processed. And but I think even the cookie ads, see them, they make kids happy. There's always that marketing push.
Oh
You
yeah.
got to love marketing. It's like cookies are a happy time. The kids are laughing, doing their thing, and the whole family's, you know what I'm saying? The whole
Hmm.
family's perfect in cookie ads. So we know cookies are junk, but yet there's still half an aisle in the store, maybe more.
Hmm.
When you go down an aisle, often opposite of the chips, which is a weird thing that I know because I love analyzing it.
Uh-huh.
And it's like there they are. And then it just slowly brings you into like the sweet crackers, and then it kind of gets into the other crackers. Like
Hmm.
it's usually going to bring you into like the biscuits and the things, and then it kind of eventually gets down to saltines. I just think it's so weird because sometimes I go through and I'm just thinking, man, it's interesting how they put it all together.
Hmm. And you just reach, I mean, well, when I say you, I mean like a person
Yeah,
who is shopping that is not carnivore or whatever. But I mean, they're just walking through there, and I mean, it's just they just pick this stuff up like it just sort of naturally progresses. And I guess they know shopping habits. They know like a logical progression of like, okay, like here's the cookies and here's this. Oh yeah, we'll get these for the kids. Here's the goldfish. And oh, it's just terrible when you think that, I mean, they give little kids, I mean, goldfish are considered healthy snacks.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Well, and you even see little kids nowadays with like monster drinks, and they're 10 years old, and they've got a 24-ounce monster. I see that at least.
geez. I don't know that I've seen kids that young with
I
them, but
have.
I mean, I see a lot of people with them
Well,
though.
maybe it's welcome to Phoenix. I don't know.
It
Sometimes
could be. Yeah.
when I see it happening, I'm just like, oh, it's so sad, but you can't. It's their lives. And that's the thing, the choice. We know cookies are junk food, but yet people buy them.
Hmm.
So even if you were told grains aren't healthy, they're not going to care. They're going to buy them because the bread is good. They like that, or
Right.
they like the cupcakes, or they like the donuts. That's a tough one.
Right. And I just think that when, and I know that there are people that are frustrated by that. I mean, people like who are health conscious, they're frustrated by the fact that these people are choosing to eat these things. But I mean, we live in the United States. We're supposed to have the right to eat what we want. Now,
Yep.
granted, there are some people out there who are actively trying to um, tell us what we can eat and control what we can eat. But the bottom line is we should be able to eat what we want. So I'm just hoping that if we get the word out, this is the thing. Just if somebody might be scrolling on YouTube or something and just something will catch their eye, something maybe draws their attention and they watch the video. And then just maybe a seed at least is planted. And then maybe if they encounter just some kind of a health scare. Maybe they are told that they're diabetic and then they remember, oh, I saw videos, and maybe they just at least do a search, and then they may not find my video again or your video, but they remember what they saw way back. And so they find a carnivore or low carb or keto video out there. And so they watch that and then they get involved too. And I think it's just a grassroots thing, but we just got to get the word out there. And the more of us who tell people, and the more of us who also approach new people with love and compassion and just meet them where they are, and just, even though you know that some of the questions that they're asking don't make much sense, but or it's a newbie question that you've heard 1,000 times, it doesn't matter. Just be patient, loving, kind, and answer the questions. And if you, and like I always tell people, if I don't know the answer, I'll see if I can find it for you or find somebody who would be a better person that could answer that question. Because, like, for example, I can't advise anybody on how to not, how to overcome a weight loss stall. But I know of several people on YouTube who could, several of my carnivore friends. And so I can refer them to one of those people.
Yeah. And I think too in our community, like I just did one of those actually, and it's doing well. And I only had one of those people respond that's like, oh, you're stepping out of lane, you're giving. I said, look, I think people know this is from our interpretation. These are 5 things I faced, and this is kind of how I overcame them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like the same thing that maybe Kelly Hogan overcame, or Sean, or these people we know in this carnivore community. And that's, I think, the important thing is like, hey, he did this, he's been through it. I'm facing the same little thing, so I can at least get an idea to try, because it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from a good spot. And this, because I was going to be asking you what you're passionate about, and I know this is obviously a passionate thing. And I'm going to jump you back to what we were talking about before this with the mashed potatoes. Now,
Ah,
when I was in a store before, when I was eating junk, I would be like, oh, like if somebody was picking up the same chocolate muffins at Costco as me, I'm like, oh, these are so good, aren't they? And they'd be like, yeah. That was,
it is
it's an
true.
interesting mental perspective when we were eating this stuff. Now you're willing to kind of say this. And I was willing now to say, oh, especially if you only eat meat or whatever I tagline into something, where back then I was like, oh, these are so good. Looking at all the pumpkin pies going, oh, good thing these
Right.
only come out once a year. I'd be, and the other person with a pie in their thing is going, yeah, there's that
You
commonality.
got to stock up.
Yeah. So if you were back in this mashed potato phase, and you can hit that because we talked about
Oh,
the
yeah.
foods that we had a hard mental time maybe breaking or getting away from. I guess this mental side I think is not covered enough in carnivore. So I'm going to try to drag you into this mental side. If
Sure.
you were that mashed potato person in a store, and also just the mashed potato person, how did you overcome that, or are there any things that you can share?
Oh, gosh. Well, in terms of, I think that basically what I ended up doing, which is not very exciting, but I mean, when I reached a certain point, like once in a while, once in a blue moon, when I was like low carb or something, like say at Thanksgiving, I would have mashed potatoes, for example, like not a bunch, but a little bit. But here's the thing, since I've gone carnivore, since I feel so good, I don't want to mess it up. So there's that motivation that's there that just says, no. So once in a while, I might be around some mashed potatoes, and like I was at Easter, and I did not have any. I didn't have any bread. I didn't have any of that stuff. None of it. Didn't want any of that. And they had some banana pudding, homemade banana pudding, which used to be my favorite dessert. Had none of it, zero zilch of it. And just the reason being is I just don't want to ruin it. I don't want to eat something that's going to make me feel terrible after I eat it. And then plus, it takes time to recover too when you do that. I mean, people think, oh, well, and you see it all on the carnivore community too. You just see it out there. And I love the fact that people are so honest about it. And Lord knows I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying that I love the fact that there are people who are willing to share when they slip up, because they will tell you it wasn't worth it. Like I had a cheap weekend and it took me a week or 2 weeks to recover from it. So I just think about that. So I still, on occasion, if I'm somewhere and there are mashed potatoes and I get a little waft, or I see that gravy dish sitting there, because man, I mean, that was my, oh, that was the hardest thing for me to give up, is the big giant bowl of mashed potatoes with the gravy just oozing. Or shoot, if there wasn't any gravy, just pile a big bunch of butter in the middle of it and just mix it all up. I mean, oh yeah. I mean, mashed potatoes were my thing. And so I guess I just control it now. I don't really want it because I know it won't make me feel, especially, I might enjoy it in the moment, but I know
Yeah.
that I will not be happy. I won't feel very well after I eat it. And it could take me a while to get back to where I'm feeling my optimal again. So I don't touch them.
I went through that. This is something too that's even for everybody, because obviously me at almost 4 years doing this. That first year I didn't want to sabotage it. I'm like you, like I'm just feeling way too good. I don't want
Hmm.
to do this. Sometimes you would kind of fight it. The second year, I started getting pretty good resistance. I know people have said their first year they can walk down an aisle and not pick up chips, which is fine because I was kind of like that. But truly, it's also a little bit. I think some people have a little bit of internal struggle with it still. You know what I mean? Even that, at least I think some people maybe truly don't that first year, but that second year, it was really starting to get easy, and it was just those few things like your mashed potatoes, as we talked about. My white rice and shoyu is my Achilles heel, and I knew I could stay away because that first year I stayed away and that broke that habit. But honestly, like my third year, I truly just don't even care.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling to be free. And I hope people do have that really, truly, like there is no way that I would ever do it. But it was in that, for me, that 2 year transition period
Hmm.
that I just became, I'm feeling way too good. And like moment on the lips, lifetime on the hips. And now it's a moment on the lips and 2 weeks on the joints or something, whatever you want to make
Yes,
up a term.
exactly. Whatever it is, whether your
Yeah.
migraines come back, whether your anxiety comes back, whatever it happens to be, you just feel like crap basically for a few days afterwards. And it's just not worth it. It just isn't.
Yeah. And that brings me back to one of my things is this mental side. It's going to take a while to break those old habits and form new ones and truly be free. And
Hmm.
I think there are some people that'll never be free. They're always going to 5 years down the line, they're going to, oh, I can't be around pizza or whatever their thing
Hmm.
is.
Another thing too, and I've heard actually some people in more than one space mention this. Like for example, I've seen people mention it like in the carnivore community and low carb, etc. But it's also been mentioned like in the financial world. Like for example, I don't know if you've heard of Dave Ramsey, but
Oh
the
yeah.
get out of debt guy and all of that. But he's about so much more. But I mean, basically, they talk about your why. Why do you want to get out of debt? For example, why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to get fit? Why, in other words, the reasoning behind it, it's so that I can play with my grandkids, or you want to pay off debt so that I can save to buy a house, things like that. So your why has to be a big why, and it has to get you through. Why do I want to quit drinking? Because I want to, have a loving marriage, for example. So your why just has to be really big. And I think uh, a lot of us, we think we want certain things, but that's not what we want. We want the way we feel when we have those things. Because like most people was like, oh, I want all this money and I want a big house. Well, do you really want that? I mean, I'm not going to turn down a big wad of money if somebody gives it to me, or if somehow I figured out a way to make a big wad of money. At the same time, though, you just really want, for example, to feel secure, maybe you want to feel free, or you want, so it's just coming up with what it is you want, truly want, and then why do you want that, and then use that as your motivation to, because we'll all have to white knuckle it. I mean,
At some
I
point.
yeah. Yeah, you have to white knuckle it initially. I didn't have as hard of a time, I think, as many people do with going to carnivore, simply because I was very, like, I was basically like ketovore when I sort
Mhm.
of slid into it. Um, However, when I did go low carb, I mean, the mashed potatoes, I mean, that was my Achilles heel. The bread wasn't too bad to give up. And then just like even not having desserts at, like, for example, when it
Yeah.
was my birthday, I had a relative that used to make me a homemade banana pudding. And I didn't have birthday cake. I always had a homemade banana pudding for my birthday. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that after I went low carb, I didn't have any of that, because I did a couple of times. But as you go, as you progress and you move further and further, and the more time, like what you were saying, though, the more time that passes, and then and I think too, carnivore, there's a secret to it. There's something about eating what I believe humans were truly designed to eat, very
Hmm.
minimal vegetables and preferably none, eating that good fatty meat, and you just feel so good. And once you've reached, your why has gotten you through the hard times, like the really stressful parts about, because if you can't really identify why you're doing something, then it's going to be a very flimsy reason to keep abstaining from this. Because if
Yeah.
you truly enjoy those donuts or just whatever it is and it makes you feel good, then you're just going to, if your why isn't good enough, you're going to slip back. I mean, it's with drinking or anything else. So yeah, just having a why, and just knowing that there are people who have done it before you, and there are people out there that are willing to help. And even if it's something like, I can't answer a question, but if you just need to vent, whatever it is, if you just need somebody to just say, yeah, man, that really stinks, I'm sorry, and just, here's a hug. I mean, obviously, if we're doing it
Yeah.
online, I mean, I can't really hug you, but i I want you to know that I love you and I care. And sometimes that's all we need.
And that brings back to the community being so big and the carnivore community being so helpful. You can pretty much all the channels, some of them that are big, it's just hard to get back to every comment. So many of the small ones, if you can relate to somebody, reach out and just say, hey, I'm having this problem. It's kind of like what you said about this.
Hmm.
That I think is a huge, very helpful community.
Oh, it's the best. I've found my family.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very good immediate family. My kids are amazing, and I'm very blessed and fortunate. And I tell the good Lord that I'm blessed and fortunate and grateful every day. I truly do. I know that I'm fortunate in that way. However, um, everyone, like, you start moving to acquaintances or people that you must deal with, and a lot of people don't understand about the lifestyle at all. Like, my kids just accept it. I mean, they just know I only eat meat. I went to a concert with my son and he brought me back. It did have a tortilla, like, on the, like, flat, but there was a pile of meat on it.
Yeah.
So he knew, he brought me, he knew, he asked me what I wanted. I just said something with a lot of meat. And so when I mean, he didn't say, well, now, Mom, that's not how, which he doesn't feel that way anyway. But I'm just saying, I mean, I didn't get any argument from him. And like, my daughter does low carb, and she actually went to the low carb for perfect health convention, or whatever you want to call it. It was in Dixon, Tennessee, a couple weekends ago. Dr. Barry and Nisha, among others, were there, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
I got to meet Dr. Barry and Nisha. It was neat.
I I just did an interview with this Karen Miles, and she's more on Instagram than YouTube stuff, but she's huge into the meetups and
Ah, yeah.
all the kind of things. And she's, I think, going to help me kind of get more, because I guess I missed one here in Arizona. I missed one in Scottsdale,
Oh,
just like
man.
by 2 days.
Oh,
So, and that's the other side. It's like, it's almost like us focusing on one thing. Like, I'm more YouTube right now. And like you were talking about too, you haven't really done the Instagram, and I've got to get more because there's even more out there than we realize.
oh, for sure. And, I might, I've toyed with the idea, and I just don't know if I can do it. but I have a fantastic idea for a meetup in Nashville, the Music City Metamorphosis.
There you go. I
And
bet you know an artist that could come up with
I bet I do. I bet I know somebody who could just come up with this whole concept.
yeah,
I know somebody who already has.
a cow looking into the thing instead of the wolf. There you go. You know what I mean?
So I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's a lot of work that goes into organizing an event, and it would be a major undertaking. But I'm toying with it because I just think it would be wonderful. And Chris Cooking Nashville is here in Nashville.
Hmm.
Um, he's got great recipes, and I'm actually would like to try his. He's got carnivore mashed potatoes. Now they
I've seen
look,
that before.
yes,
See, and again, me like the longer I go in this, the narrower I get. I'm literally down to chuck and ribeyes.
yeah,
And it is funny. It's my own path, but I'm totally fine with it. And I even tell people, hey, if you need this, if you got an eating disorder, try to get away from it, get control, and then you can introduce it again.
mm-hmm,
But people only want to hear, I want to take it away. I'm like, no, I'm saying
yeah.
get it in control and then see if you can bring it back in control where you don't eat the whole tub of pork rinds, but you can just have some with your meal as a crunchy condiment or something. But
Yeah,
it takes time.
I don't
This all
really.
takes time.
I thought what I might do though is like if I get invited, well, not if I get invited, but whenever like I get invited for a holiday function, try to make those. I'll try them first to see if they really are that good. I've seen review videos where they've done Chris's recipe, and it's all carnivore ingredients. It's not even keto; it's carnivore
Hmm.
ingredients, and the mashed potatoes apparently they have the consistency of mashed potatoes and they taste like them and everything, but he approaches things almost like a food scientist. It's incredible. He knows like what things you can mix together to get a certain taste and texture. And he's not a professional chef, but his mother had taught him, and he just evolved into um, like watching instructional videos on cooking, and he watched various shows and stuff, and it just evolved into this thing where he's on, like I said, he's like a food scientist now and just knows this stuff. And so I thought if I could make the now this is going to be an adventure for me because uh, I don't generally cook much that's takes a lot of work. So
Yeah.
it seems like they'll take a little bit of work to do, but if I could do those and if they taste well enough, I might could bring them to a holiday function and stuff. And then I would sort of have that little bit of a sense, but I will not, I don't know. I may or may not do that. It's a thought because look, those mashed potatoes, they talk to you every now and then. They do.
And then when you learn to make your steak, you could have your steak and your carnivore mashed
That's
potatoes.
right.
That would be
Yes.
the,
I need to learn to make my steak. Oh, it's
yeah.
terrible. It's terrible that I'm
So,
a carnivore and can't cook steak.
yeah. So, kind of to wrap this up, what would you say to people out there? What are some kind of parting, whatever you want to say? What would be the message, or what's a thing, or just go with it?
I want people to, if they've been toying with the idea of carnivore, just start. And you don't necessarily even have to start with carnivore. I would say at least start by eliminating the seed oils and the grains and the added sugar. If you just do that for a while, and then you might start, well, okay, now I'll eliminate potatoes and I'll eliminate this. And you just gradually work yourself down, but you will not regret it. Uh, I know that we've been told that fatty meat is bad, and I know that that's deeply ingrained in us, and that women typically portion control. And so to think that I can eat, like if I'm truly just eating nothing but fatty meat, I'm not talking about like another version of the diet of low carb or keto, but if you're truly just eating nothing but fatty red meat, yes, you can eat what you want of it, and your body will gradually, regulate itself. But the whole point is just start. I think that's where people get messed up. And that's true of anything in life, whether it's creating a YouTube channel or whatever. I mean, take the first step, just the first step. And the carnivore community is so welcoming. And there are so many different types of people from different backgrounds that you can bet your bottom dollar that there is somebody there who has experienced the same illness or the same symptom or the same problem, the same challenge. They've experienced it. And so you will get help and you will get love and support. And that's true. So just start and then
Yeah,
get involved in community.
that's 100%. 100%. And obviously, whoever channel you're on, we'll have both our social media stuff down in the description. Go
And
check out
both,
the other
just check
side.
out
And
both
yeah,
channels.
yeah, that's the thing to do is just,
And actually just check out as many channels as you can, as many
yeah,
carnivore channels. Just check out everybody
yep.
because everybody has a unique take on things. And it's just fun to get different perspectives.
And there's a lot of lives out there from a lot of the channels too, where you can jump in and kind of chat and
Mm-hmm.
see, and you'll see that the chat's really active with a lot of us that know each other, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a great community.
We're family and we want
Yep.
you to join. We want you
Yeah.
to join the family, people. So come on.
Yep. Yep.
You're welcome. And if you're keto and just starting out, that's fine. We'll welcome
Yeah.
you and we'll help you.
That's for sure. Well, awesome. This was a good time. We'll have to do another one. We'll
Yeah.
do a live together too.
Yeah. Let's do a live. I'm
You know,
in. I'm
we'll
definitely
be
in.
having a good stuff. So I guess this is goodbye to everybody else out there. And my
Yeah.
infamous oh hui ho. We will see you